Genetics is the study of how traits are inherited, or in other words, how different information is passed from the parents onto the offspring or onto the children. So one important concept to understand as we start to talk about genetics is the idea of homologous chromosomes. So homologous chromosomes are similar chromosomes. They have similar information, or in other words, what we're saying is that they have the same genes, or you could refer to this as loci, but they have different, may have different versions of the genes. And so if we look at these two chromosomes here, these are representing homologous chromosomes, and we would expect to have the exact same genes located in the same positions. So I can show that as just little black kind of tick marks down along these chromosomes. There would be lots of genes located all throughout the chromosomes. And notice that I'm trying to put these marks kind of at the same position on both of them. So this first one might be gene A. So we might have a gene that we're calling gene A located at this very first position on both of those chromosomes. We may have the same version on both of those, and version I'll represent with just a capital A in this case. If our next mark was representing gene B, then we would expect it to be B for both of the chromosomes since they're homologous. But notice down here we said that we may have different versions of the genes. So on one chromosome, the blue one, I've shown a capital B for the version. On the red one, I've shown a lowercase b, just to indicate that they may be different from each other. And then C, I'm going to put two little c's. I'm going to put a capital D and a lowercase d. And we could go the whole way down here if we wanted. Some of the genes, we have exactly the same version on the two chromosomes. Some of them, we have different versions on the two chromosomes. The important thing to understand is that if we are talking about a somatic cell, and most of our cells are somatic cells are going to be diploid. So when you have diploid cells, they are going to contain two copies, or in other words, they are going to have homologous chromosomes inside of them. And the important thing here to remember is that that means that for every gene, we will have two actual copies of it. So we'll have one copy on each of those members of the homologous pair. Now, if we talk about this just a little bit more and we talk about why we happen to have homologous chromosomes inside of our cells, well, the reason for that has to do with where these actually came from. So we know that we were conceived from an egg and a sperm being combined together. And that's where these come from. So one of the chromosomes is going to come from mom, and that would be in the form of the egg. So the egg had one of those homologous chromosomes in it, and the sperm had one of them as well. So one copy came from mom, one copy came from dad, and because of that, it is very possible that we get different versions of the genes because, of course, mom and dad have different information that they could pass on to us. So this is really the foundation of genetics as we start to talk about it, because both of our parents will be contributing specific information to us in the form of a particular chromosome that we inherit from that egg or sperm that does eventually become the zygote that becomes us. So if we start with some basic terminology here, we do have what we will call genes. And those are really specific sequences of DNA. But as we talk about those specific sequences of DNA, really what these genes do is they are going to contain the info or the information to make something in the cell. And typically, we're talking about a protein, although we might be making something else like an RNA molecule. But this gene is going to be information that the cell is going to look at, and it is going to tell it how to make something. And then based on that substance that we make, we're going to a lot of times have a specific look or unique look to us. So I've drawn on here a triangle and a square, and these would obviously be shapes. So if, for example, we call this our shape gene. And you could apply this to different things. This could be the shape of your face, for example. So there's different face types like square and oval and round faces and so on. So we have a shape gene. Now we can have different versions of that. So versions of the gene are what we call alleles. So alleles are different versions of a particular gene. And in this example, we have two versions. We have triangle and square. Now, you may have more versions than that possible. So we talked about face shape. We can have square, round, oval. Sometimes we do have what we call kind of a triangular face shape. So there are a lot of different possibilities sometimes depending on the specific gene that we're looking at. So we do definitely want to understand what we mean when we say an allele. So if we go back to the idea of the homologous chromosomes can contain different alleles for a particular gene. So that's another way to describe them. And what that boils down to is that they have different sequences to the DNA. So these different versions of a particular gene, really they have different DNA sequences, slightly different. It isn't going to be big differences that we see here, but there's enough difference there that the product that we make from that information in the DNA is going to be just a little bit different.